Jenna has always been skeptical of sleep paralysis stories until she experienced it herself. It happened on a summer night just as she drifted into slumber. All of a sudden she heard a faint whisper in her ear. Jenna woke up with a jolt, feeling her heart beating faster than usual. She tried to move, but she couldn't. Jenna felt a dark presence in the room, and in the corner she saw a silhouette of a figure with long fingers crawling towards her. The figure got closer and closer until it was right beside her, looming over her. Jenna tried to scream, but nothing came out of her mouth. She was paralyzed. The creature had long, sharp nails and was breathing heavily. It made its way up to Jenna's face, posed to strike. She could feel fear and panic rising inside of her. Jenna knew it wasn't a dream, and was convinced that this was a real-life supernatural event. But how could it be real? The creature held its position, watching Jenna with malicious intent. It seemed content to wait for her to make a move. But before she could react, she felt an invisible force push her towards the ceiling. Everything was silent, and she was weightless, suspended in midair. Suddenly, in front of her, the creature morphed into a demonic creature with pure white eyes and a gasping mouth full of razor-sharp teeth. Jenna felt terror grip her, but before the creature could do anything, she woke up sweating and trembling. She realized it was all a terrifying dream. Jenna didn't think much of it until she saw 3 deep scratches on her arm in the morning. Just like the creature had sharp nails from that day forward, Jenna slept with the lights on, staring at the ceiling until she finally fell asleep, hoping to never experience that kind of sleep paralysis again. Mark had always been skeptical about the paranormal. Ghosts and demons didn't scare him, and he usually found it hard to believe the stories he heard from others about sleep paralysis. He thought that it was all just a figment of people's imagination, a way of coping with the anxiety of the unknown. That was until he experienced his first sleep paralysis episode. Mark awoke in the middle of the night to find himself unable to move. He opened his eyes to see a black shadowy figure hovering over him, just a few inches above his face. At first he thought it was just a trick of the light, but the figure appeared to shift and move, its presence darker than the surrounding darkness. Mark's breath caught in his throat as he tried to move, to scream, to do anything, but he couldn't even get a sound out. The figure continued to hover, silent and menacing, the presence almost suffocating. As terror gripped him, Mark started to struggle against the paralysis, pushing and twisting all of his might. The figure seemed to feed off his fear, its twisted malevolence growing stronger. Suddenly, as quickly as it appeared, the figure vanished, leaving Mark gasping for air, and his heart racing. He spent the rest of the night with the lights on, unable to close his eyes. Despite everything, he still wanted to believe that it was just a bad dream, that it wasn't real. But the presence he felt in the room that night, the feeling of pure malevolence, darkness, was something he couldn't shake. From that night on, Mark knew the truth about sleep paralysis, the weight of fear that accompanied it. He realized that sometimes the unknown was more than just a figment of our imagination. It was a force to be reckoned with. Emma had always been somewhat of a troubled sleeper, with vivid dreams that would often leave her feeling tired and drained during the day. But nothing could have prepared her for the night of terror that she would come to haunt her for the rest of her life. One night she had just gone to bed and was quickly drifting off to sleep when she suddenly became aware of a strange sensation. She felt as if her body was weighted down by an invisible force, like something was holding her down. Her heart began to race as she realized she couldn't move a muscle. She felt like she was suffocating, unable to take a breath. Emma tried to call out for help, but her mouth refused to work. Her throat felt like it was closing in, and she could not produce any sound. Suddenly the room began to fill with a chilling presence that she couldn't see, but felt with every fiber of her being. As her eyes adjusted to the darkness, it became clear that something was standing at the end of her bed. It was a shadowy figure with glowing red eyes watching her with an unearthly intensity. the figure approached her, standing at the end of her bed, and leaned over her, its breath hot and rancid on her skin. Emma squeezed her eyes shut, trying to force herself to wake up, but the presence only grew stronger. Then, the moment of pure terror, the figure reached out and touched her, enveloping her in a cold, lifeless embrace. Despite her efforts to fight it, Emma remained trapped in that state of paralysis for what felt like an eternity. With the ominous figure looming over her, its red eyes staring into her very soul. Even after it evaporated into the darkness, she was never the same, consumed by her fear of experiencing it again. From that night on, Emma slept with a light, afraid to fall asleep and be trapped again by the shadowy figure that haunted her dreams. She never really knew what it was, but she felt certain that it was real and that it would come back for her again. It was a warm summer night after a long day of work. As I drifted off to sleep, I remember feeling a bit uneasy, as if something was off. I thought nothing of it though. I closed my eyes, anticipating a restful night's sleep. However, it was not meant to be. At some point during the night, I woke up finding myself unable to move. No matter how hard I tried, my limbs felt heavy, and my body just wouldn't cooperate. I have heard of sleep paralysis before, but nothing could have prepared me for the sense of dread, helplessness I experienced in that moment. As if it wasn't bad enough, I soon found out that I wasn't alone. In the corner of my eye, I noticed a humanoid figure standing near the end of my bed. It was tall and dark, with a hazy, instinctive shape that reminded me of a smoke or mist. Its presence felt malevolent, and I could feel my heart racing with fear. I tried to scream and move, but it was no use. The figure started to approach me, its movement slow and deliberate. I looked around frantically, hoping to find a way out, but everything seemed to be in the slow motion. The figure crept closer and closer until I could see its glowing red eyes staring straight at me. It spoke to me in a language I didn't recognize, its voice echoing through my mind. Every fiber of my being screamed with terror. I felt as I was about to be consumed by the darkness enveloping me. I had never felt so helpless and vulnerable before. After what felt like an eternity, the figure vanished. I was finally able to move my body again, but the experience had left me shaken to the core. It took me a long time to fall back to sleep that night, and then even afterward, I couldn't shake off the feeling of dread that lingered for days. Sleep paralysis may be a common phenomenon, but the terror it brings is all too real. Sleep paralysis is the most horrifying experience I could ever imagine. When I first started experiencing it, I thought I was going insane. It began with a feeling of darkness surrounding my body. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, couldn't even breathe. I was a prisoner in my own shell, forced to endure twisted and terrifying hallucinations. One night during a particularly intense episode of sleep paralysis, I saw something that shook me to my core. I saw it, a demon with red eyes, towering over me. Its skin was made of scales, black as the darkest night, with some horns on its head. It spoke to me in a voice that sounded like nails on a chalkboard. It told me things that I even now can't even bring myself to repeat. All I felt in that moment was coldness and all-consuming terror that broke me. But worst part of it all was that creature followed me into my walking life. I could see it lurking in the shadows, watching my every move. I could hear its whispers even when I was surrounded by people. It was as if it had attached itself onto me, and it was never going to let go. I tried everything to get rid of it. I went to a shaman, a priest, and even a hypnotist, but nothing worked. This thing had taken over my life, and I couldn't seem to escape its grasp. I still wake up sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes at dawn, with that same feeling of darkness all around me. I know it's still there, still watching, still waiting for me to let my guard down. Sleep paralysis changed me in ways that I can't even fully comprehend. It's a terrifying and paranormal experience that no one should have to experience. But unfortunately, some do. Hello guys, HorrorHub here, and welcome to the end of the video. I really do hope y'all enjoyed the sleep paralysis stories. Leave a comment down below of what stories you want me to cover next. And with that being said, I hope you have an amazing night's rest and that you don't experience sleep paralysis yourself. Have a good one. Peace.